by Ram. The title is Progress Toward Eradication of BVD in Ireland. Please.
Okay, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this presentation, I'll give you a brief overview of the progress to date with the National Eradication Programme in Ireland, and also touch on some of the challenges that we have faced along the way. So in terms of the programme itself, the goal is, well, it was eradication after Joe's presentation. It should now be elimination, but elimination of the virus by the end of 2020. And certainly before the introduction of the programme, it's fair to say that BVD, as in many other countries, was endemic in the national herd in Ireland, and indeed a cost-benefit study that was carried out in support of the programme suggested annual ongoing losses in the region of €100 million per annum to the industry. The programme itself, just briefly to give you the structure of it, it is industry-led, and that means that industry, the farmers, bear the majority of the cost associated with the programme. It is coordinated by the organisation that I work for, Animal Health Ireland, and we convene a technical working group which gives the scientific input and advice to the programme, and also then a cross-industry implementation group which has met approximately monthly since 2011. And it is that implementation group that has taken the decisions initially to initiate the programme, and then meeting regularly to review progress and to take management decisions in relation to it. The programme in Ireland is based on tissue tag testing using tissue sample-enabled official identity tags. And as you can see there, each tag bears the unique identity number of the animal that it has been collected from, and that provides the traceability back to the animal for the laboratory. The programme began in 2012 as a voluntary programme for 1 year, and based on the progress in that year, then the decision was taken to move to a compulsory national programme from the 1st of January 2013. And that is, again, picking up one of Joe's themes, supported by legislation, relatively straightforward, simple legislation, but that has been very effective in driving compliance with the requirements. The testing within the programme is primarily carried out by a series of designated private laboratories, and the data management within the programme, again, is provided through an industry database. So just in terms of progress, first of all, and if we look at that at the animal level, so you can see back in 2013, we had an initial prevalence in that year's calf crop, so some 2.3 million calves and 0.66%, so that translating into 13 or 14,000 PI calves, and decreasing year on year. So in the current year to date, when we have around 90% of our calf crop tested, 0.05% prevalence this year so far. And if we tease that out into dairy and beef herds, again we see similar levels and a similar stepwise reduction year on year. If we consider instead then moving to herd level, again in parallel with the animal reduction, a reduction in prevalence in herds testing positive from around 11% down to 1% in the current year. And again, if we tease that out in terms of beef and dairy herds, we see more of a difference, a much higher prevalence in dairy herds initially, so 20%, 1 in 5 dairy herds having animals testing positive in that first year of the programme. We're now in the 6th year of national testing, and obviously as we have gone through the programme, we're accumulating individual animal statuses on the database for all animals really in the national breeding herd now. So some, as you can see at the bottom there, some 6.3 million animals in 83,000 breeding herds. And you can see that almost all of those animals now, so in the figure at the top here, over 99% of animals in the national herd now have a known negative status. And the next largest cohort here, so 0.7%, whose status currently remains unknown. But based on this then, we've been able to progress from purely looking at the individual animal status to also considering herd status. And on that basis, we can assign herds a negative herd status, provided they satisfy 2 criteria. So firstly, that all animals in the herd have a known negative status, and secondly, that they have been free from infection for at least a 12-month period. So you can see at this stage the majority of the breeding herd, 72,000 out of 83,000, some 87% have negative herd status, and a further 10,000 have a pending negative herd status. So those herds have all been free for 12 months plus, but they contain typically on average 4 to 5 animals whose status is unknown, and resolving the status of these animals is a key activity within the programme in the remaining months of this year, with the intention then of moving them to NHS. In terms of challenges that the programme has faced, the single biggest challenge certainly has been the issue of retention of PIs. So the legal framework within the programme requires that animals are tested. It prohibits the movements of calves until they have a negative result, and obviously if they test positive, or animals that have a suspect status assigned in the programme as well. But you can see on the survival curve here, which is looking at the first 3 years of the programme, and in particular here in the first year in 2013, approximately a third of calves were still alive 6 months after their initial identification. You can see as well then, if we tease that out a little bit more again by beef and dairy, again, particularly in 2013, the challenge there was in relation to the beef herds, and that's not perhaps surprising. Year on year, I think we have seen some further progress, and I think that maybe is the Irish starting to learn Dugnad. I think as well some evidence of, in the first year, people wishing to learn from their own mistakes, in the subsequent years being happier to learn from the mistakes of others and removing PIs more promptly. The Irish BVD model was developed in part as a means to investigate the impact that retention would have within the programme, and has been vital in communicating those risks, both to the implementation group in support of decision making and more widely in the industry. But you can see in this particular run of the model, so it's looking at what would happen if PIs were retained at the same levels as they had been in 2015. And bearing in mind we were starting up here around 14,000, we continue to see a reduction in PI births, but certainly well past 2020 we're having in and around 1,000 PIs per annum stillborn. In contrast, if we're able to remove the PIs in the week of birth, then the model predicts that certainly by 2020 eradication is feasible, although certainly not the outcome in all iterations of the model. But nonetheless, this has really brought focus to the implementation group, and I'm happy to say that the issue of retention has been largely, if not wholly, addressed at this stage. So currently we have perhaps 14 or 15 herds only in the country that are retaining PIs, and currently that is where they are present on farm for more than 35 days or 5 weeks after the date of their initial identification. And these are some of the measures then that have been gradually introduced in an effort to resolve that. And again, I'm grateful to Joe for introducing the concept of carrot and stick. And you can see again here, there's both carrot and stick on this slide. So if we maybe start with the carrot as we prefer. So there has been a gradual introduction of limited financial supports for removal of persistently infected animals from government. It has varied over time, and it also varies with herd type, but the maximum payable is €185. That's for a beef herd, and where the animal is removed within 3 weeks of identification. And within 3 weeks, obviously then there's not a retest to confirm it as being PI. There is also funding of private veterinary practitioners to offer advice in terms of the merits of retesting and where that's considered appropriate to conduct the retest. If we move more to the stick side, there is, from the start of 2017 onwards, there has been an automatic placing of a restriction on herds that are retaining PIs, and that is a restriction then on both movements into the herd and movements out of the herd. And that certainly has assisted in resolving the issue of retention and also of addressing, obviously, onward transmission. And in conjunction with that, the issuing of letters to neighbouring herds advising them of the increased risk and recommending that they take the necessary measures to review and improve their own biosecurity as necessary. And in addition then, there has been the funding of veterinary investigations, so trained private vets carrying out investigations on all herds where there have been PIs identified, and those have been in place from 2017 onwards, with the goals of identifying the source of infection, providing a review of biosecurity in the herd, and leaving the herd ultimately free of infection subsequent to that investigation. So at this stage within the programme, we're starting to look forward, firstly in terms of considering some further enhancements to bring the programme to a close, at least in terms of eradication by 2020, but also beyond that then to evaluate strategies that can be used for post-eradication surveillance. And Joe has already touched on some of these, but certainly there will be an increased emphasis on the use of serology within the programme, either at farm level through bulk tank testing or young stock check testing, or also investigating the feasibility and the usefulness of surveillance at abattoir level. And we have ongoing modelling work to assist us in that decision making. And again, picking up on one of the points Joe made, at this stage, looking to develop a sequence database now that we have relatively small numbers of PI animals, but developing a sequence database, linking that to movement analysis, and really increasing the amount of molecular epidemiology that's involved in the programme. So just in conclusion, to touch on some of the factors which we consider have contributed to the success such as there has been within the programme to date. So as I said, the programme is industry-led, and certainly the support and the ongoing support of industry has been crucial. And certainly the cost-benefit analysis and the identification of the costs to industry and the benefits to be gained have been important in that. Clear and simple legislation has resulted in a very high degree of compliance, an effective network of designated laboratories which, despite the very seasonal calving pattern, have consistently returned rapid turnaround of test results, and allied to that an effective database for managing both animal and herd level statuses and communicating results promptly back to the submitting farmers. In terms of the carrots, the provision of the financial supports from government certainly have been very helpful in terms of encouraging the removal of PIs, as has been the funding of herd investigations. And again, those have contributed to mopping up herds where infection is present. The use of the stick in terms of automated restrictions and the notification of neighbouring herds has also certainly been a significant contributing factor to further progress in the programme in this past 2 years. The development of the BVD model, again, has been extremely useful in communicating and exploring what can be quite complex ideas to get across to industry. And finally, having access to all of the programme data and using that allied with other databases for epidemiological studies, again, to provide an evidence base to review the programme and to take evidence-based decisions in terms of further changes. So with that, I'll conclude. I'll leave you just with these acknowledgements to a range of individuals and bodies that have also been instrumental in the programme. Thank you.